Hi guys.
Hi there.
So we are already into putting our foundation on, and we once again realized that our mic was not turned on.
We're not used to the mic thing. Like, we never really had one before.
Nope. So these
so
last few
different.
months, it's been like an adjustment period. So
Yeah.
we are filming a new True Hollywood Thursday.
Hooray!
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
But it turned out to be pretty perfect.
This Saturday happens to be our person's
Birthday.
birthday.
She would have been 36 years old today.
Yes.
And part of the reason why we're not going to go into super details on this, that it's taken us so long to get one of these up and that it's coming up on a Saturday, is that this week has been a pretty rough week for everybody.
Yeah, it's been kind of a difficult week, and we've just not found the time to film. We've not found, if I'm going to be honest, really even the desire. We've had a lot of stuff going on, you know, and it's just been it's been an odd week, definitely. So, but here we are today. Happen to be filming on this person's birthday.
Which
if
is
this goes up today,
amazing.
that's awesome. If it goes up tomorrow, still happy birthday. Who are we talking about today, Doc?
We are talking about the lovely Miss Soulful Amy Winehouse.
Oh my God, that voice.
Yes. Amy Jade Winehouse was born on September 14th, so happy birthday. That's the day we're filming. Amy, in 1983.
1983, she was born to Mitch and Janice in a suburb of London, England.
Called Southgate.
Yes, indeed.
She had an older brother by the name of Alex. And she was born into a very musically inclined family.
Yes, she was. Her father was a huge Frank Sinatra fan, but I know she had like uncles and aunts and stuff who were jazz musicians and in the music industry, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Her family, she grew up in a Jewish family, but she is reported as saying that she was never very active in her religion.
Yeah, she basically described what Judaism meant to her is like family and love, but she was never specifically religious.
So they did spend a lot of time together as a family, singing and doing those types of things, to the point where she would say that if she was about to get in trouble at school and she had to go talk to her head mistress, she would sing Fly Me to the Moon, so that, you know, her dad's love for Frank Sinatra really carried over to her.
Yeah, she absolutely loved Frank Sinatra.
Her parents separated when she was 9 years old,
Yes, they did.
and there weren't really many statements on how she took that, but she did live with her mom primarily, and then she spent the weekends with her dad.
Yes, her dad and his new wife. I didn't see anything about like her not handling any of that well. She seemed to just kind of, you know, accept it. I'm sure she wasn't thrilled, but you know.
Yeah, most kids aren't.
You know, you see things like when we did
Kurt Cobain?
you see things like when we did Kurt Cobain, like he did not handle his parents separating very well. Lots of people whose parent, like, they don't take it very well, but there was nothing specifically said that might have been, you know, something that was a catalyst for what's to come later.
No. She did get involved through her grandma into a school called, and I'm going to look down here, in 1992, Susie Earnshaw Theater School. She was doing that for vocal lessons and for tap lessons, which is super cool.
Tap lessons, yeah, tapping is really hard.
Yeah, it is. Ooh. Everything is looking super bright on me because I'm so tan.
She's so tan. Don't worry, she'll balance herself out in a minute.
Yes, I will. She was doing that school on weekends initially, but then I believe she moved there full time.
Yes. While she was there, she attended for about 4 years, and while she was there, she founded a girl rap group, which I think is super cool, called Sweet and Spicy? No, Sweet and Sour. She was the sour.
Yep.
In that group. She was very like rebellious, outspoken, and actually that kind of rebellion I think ended up being, and the owner of the school and her father deny this, but she has said so, she ended up getting kicked out of the school.
Yeah, she said it was for not applying herself, but also for getting a nose piercing.
She had a nose piercing, and I think she had already started tattooing herself.
Oh damn, that's young. I mean, we got our first tattoos when we were
15. Yeah, so it's not that young.
She did make a television appearance in 1997 on a show called The Fast Show. I don't know what show that was. I didn't find very many details on it. I suppose I could have researched it.
I have it in my head that it's like a variety show.
Probably, yeah. Also around this time was the first time she ever bought a guitar.
Yeah, she, I guess, had been like playing around with it and trying to learn how to, you know, basically play the guitar. And it took her about a year before she started writing her own music. And I feel like that is so awesome.
Yeah,
like she's basically self-taught.
15 years old.
Like, I couldn't do that. I don't think. But I'm not musically inclined.
Well, her brother had a guitar that
She was messing around with that before she bought herself one. But I don't know. I just feel like there's no way in hell I'd be able to teach myself how to play the guitar.
I agree. That's insane. So super talented. And she did work at a young age at a entertainment, like as an entertainment journalist.
Yes.
On a publication called World Entertainment News Network.
Yeah.
So she was super into that whole lifestyle, entertainment.
Yeah. I saw an interview with her boss there, because she worked there for a little while, I believe, and she actually met a man there and fell in love.
Aw.
I couldn't find his name, but they were basically like, the guy said that they were obsessed with each other.
Young love.
He would become the inspiration for one of her very first hits.
Which song?
The song called Stronger Than Me.
Oh.
On her debut album, Frank, which we will get into.
Yes. She also performed in a local band called the Bolsha Band, where I believe she was probably the vocalist for that band.
I would imagine.
That voice. You can't deny that voice.
No, you can't. Absolutely not. It's powerful.
And then after that, in July of 2000, she was a featured vocalist in the National Youth Jazz Orchestra. So she was being recognized for her talents, which again, I'm gonna say it a million times, that freaking voice.
She's got such a super duper unique voice too. You know, so
a lot of her songs were kicking off and like becoming super duper popular while I was deployed, and I can remember hearing her songs because we had our own little radio station in Iraq that would play like all the top hits, and hers were definitely one of them that were consistently played on that station, specifically Rehab. Everybody knows Rehab.
I don't know, I remember Rehab making me feel very uncomfortable because all I wanted to be like is just go to rehab. Just go, you know? So also in July of 2000, a friend of hers from school had actually passed along a demo tape to somebody at a record company called 19 Management. That company was owned by the guy who would eventually create all of the Idol things, like American Idol, Britain's Next Top Idol.
Simon Fuller.
Yeah, that guy.
They really liked her demo, but they signed her, but they kept her a secret for a while.
They had her performing, which is interesting to me, at jazz places. Like she was performing at, I think it's called the Cobden Club, I want to say. And so she was there regularly as a jazz singer, basically being put out there by her management company because they were trying to, I guess, like see how she would be received by people in the jazz community.
But she wasn't like advertised, and they didn't like push her music out like to the media or anybody like that. She formed a relationship with a producer by the name of Salam Remy, and that got the attention of somebody at Island Records by the name of Darkest Bees or Darkest Beezy. He heard her music by mistake. Accidentally heard it, fell in love with her voice, wanted to know who it was, and he would search for months to figure it out.
Because nobody would tell him because
she was a secret. She was like they were going to release her, but they wanted to wait.
I think it was a lot because she was so unique in the age of, you know, the Christina Aguileras and the Britney Spears, and they wanted, like, she was going to be an answer to the pop princesses, and she was by no means a pop princess.
And this was also during the time of like the reality TV shows where they were trying to build pop brands and stuff or pop bands and stuff like that. Like,
I
making
remember
the
that.
Band
Oh my god.
Stuff and making the girl group or whatever.
That's how old we are. I remember those.
It's not that long ago. That was like 2003,
Dude,
2004.
Chill. We old. She was eventually introduced to a man named Nick Gatfield at Island Records. He was incredibly eager to sign her. And so he did. And and I think they're like kind of snatched her away from that 19 management, or maybe they were still managing her and this was now her record company. I don't know. I don't know how the industry works.
Possible.
All things are possible. They worked with Amy, and they recorded her very first album, which was
Frank.
It's called Frank after Frank Sinatra.
Yep.
And that had that song, Stronger Than Me. And that song is about, like, it's kind of like, when I heard what it was about, I was kind of like, well, that's a little sexist. It was about, she needed her man to be stronger than her. He was older than her, and she shouldn't be the strong one in the relationship. It should be him. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, that's a terrible message to be sending out, but whatever. It was a critical hit. Like, it was received so well.
It really was.
It was not quite in the same style of Back to Black or Rehab. It was very much like a jazz album. And she co-wrote
every song.
Almost every song. There were a couple of covers. Two covers, but every other song she co-wrote. And
she ended up getting nominated for this album on the British Awards circuit. She was nominated for Best British Female Solo Artist and British Urban Act.
Yes, indeed. You know, and she was really, like, she was well received by, like, the public too, especially because she was so different, like I mentioned, than the Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera's of the time. Like, she was definitely not
Very
a pop
different.
princess. She was just different.
She was very different. Her album ended up going platinum, even though she was later quoted as saying that she only stood behind about 80% of that album because she felt like she was overruled on a lot of the song choices and the music choices. So while she was proud of it, she stood behind about 80% of that album.
I imagine your very first album, probably record companies and your management has a big hand in it.
Oh yeah,
and when you're brand new, they can kind of like take over because you don't really know what you're doing.
Not yet.
So it was really difficult for us to find a whole lot on like her personal life, her love life. We all know, and we've all seen the pictures of them, but we all know about her relationship with Blake Fielder Sybil. They, I believe, met in like 2006, maybe 2005, and they kind of had an on-again, off-again relationship. So
I believe
during the course of their relationship, it was really on-off throughout.
If you hear dogs freaking out, it's because Chris is probably outside without them.
Yeah.
They're desperately in love with him.
Yeah, just completely in love with my husband. It's crazy.
It's bad. And you can hear him in the background. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. How dare he be doing anything without them? But they had a very violent relationship.
Yes.
You know, and before she met him, and this is kind of the thing that, like, sort of, I felt a little bit, like, I felt very sad about it. She was extremely anti-drugs.
Yes. I actually saw an interview with, I think it was the same interview Jess saw with her former boss, that she was very much so against drugs, and he was quoted as saying like that was just not who she was, and she was vocally against it.
Vocally, very much so. She was just, no. She basically knew that they ruined lives. During one of their off periods, she did move in with somebody. I think he was like a baker, or he worked in a restaurant. But obviously it didn't last because she had gotten back together eventually with Blake. Blake had a girl on the side. Also, that was just like, that was kind of the inspiration for her song Back to Black. You know, you go back to her and I go back to black. That song, like, I had never actually heard that song, and I listened to it after I saw a documentary on her and was just like, interesting. It's a very sad video.
It really is. In May of 2006, just to kind of go back to a little bit more about her career, she actually had some demos for two of her biggest songs. You Know I'm No Good and Rehab, and they were played on Mark Ronson's radio show. And then they did go on to produce her next album, which we will talk about here in a little bit, because that was easily her biggest album ever.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the Back to that album was amazing.
Yeah, it really was.
So while she was with Blake is obviously when she started taking drugs. It was basically like a, what do you want to try with him? He would just give her anything that she wanted to try. And they would go from, cocaine to crack to heroin. Like, it was
all the big boys.
ketamine. It was like, you see this, and you see like interviews with her when she was fresh faced and just starting to pick up her fame off of the success of Frank, and she's just super anti-drugs, and then you see her during her relationship as it progresses with Blake, and you just see somebody who looks like they're basically wasting away.
Yep.
It was so tragic to see.
It really was. Actually, that was my first real introduction to her, was seeing what she looked like while she was with Blake.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, how does such a tiny little person produce such a beautiful, like, deep, big, soulful voice like that? Because she was just a little teeny tiny thing, and that had a lot to do with, because you can see the difference, and, I'm not making any sort of judgments, but you can see the difference in before she started, and then when she did start, and it's so drastic in her physical appearance.
Yeah. So families got involved, obviously, and tried to make them go to rehab.
Yeah.
I think they agreed at one point to go, and they stayed for like 2 days, and then they left. They ran away basically from it, and I think that might also be where the inspiration for,
The song Rehab
came from.
That
Trying
makes
to make me
sense.
go to rehab. One of the lines in there always bothers me. My daddy, he thinks I'm fine. No, honey, your daddy didn't think you're fine.
Mm-mm.
No.
He did not. So, Back to Black album that was produced by Mark Ronson and Mr. Remy. And I saw a funny little tidbit of information from Mark Ronson, where he said that she did not know who he was when she met him. Like, she knew who Mark Ronson was, but she was not expecting him.
Oh, wow.
She was expecting an older guy with like a beard and stuff like that. But he said he really did like her because once, they got to work together, her bluntness and her attitude towards, and she was just a very honest, blunt person when it came to the music that they were producing together. And if she didn't like it, she was going to let you know, I do not like this.
So their collaboration eventually led to the release of Back to Black.
Such a good album.
Oh yeah, such an amazing album.
I think that's when a lot of us actually discovered Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, a lot of, that's how I found out about her, was through the song Rehab, and the I'm No Good and all of that. And it's like, number one, like, it sounded like she had such a low opinion of herself in so many of these songs. I just like honey, you were gorgeous, you had a beautiful voice. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I imagine that definitely did contribute to kind of her
Downward
spiral. Yeah. So the album was number 1 in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Best-selling album of 2007. It peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was kind of her way to break through into America.
Yes. The song Rehab was actually named by Times Magazine as the best song of 2007. And she was praised as a mouthy, witty, possibly crazy, but impossible not to be seduced by her originality.
Oh, yeah.
That's the type of musician she was, and I completely agree.
I agree, too.
First time I heard Rehab, I was like, who the is this?
Yeah.
This is crazy good.
Like I said, that song made me feel so uncomfortable when I first heard it. And it was like, just get yourself help. Like, I don't understand.
Just go to rehab.
I mean, I've never dealt with addiction issues really.
The second single off of that album was I'm No Good. And that also topped all the charts. There was a remix with a rap verse with Ghostface Killah.
Nice.
And that ultimately reached number 18 on the UK singles chart. So again, successful. She was doing really great things with her music, and her music was very impactful. And I think it was because a lot of that music, it had a message. And people related to that.
It was very real. It was very blunt. It was very, like, it wasn't sugar-coated. It wasn't, like, it was kind of, like, ugly in the good way. Like, it was just real. The world is ugly. And she was talking about real shit.
Yeah.
She really was. So while her professional life was kind of taking off and all of that, She was still falling apart, I think, in her personal life. Like,
Yep.
there's no getting around that. She was getting deeper and deeper into drug use. She was getting skinnier and skinnier. And, you know, eventually she and Blake decided to make it official. They cut off any ties with any other person. And when I say that, I mean he basically ended things with, you know, whatever side chick he had.
Side chick.
And they got married. They got married in, I think it was Miami, Florida. The families were all very upset because they basically ran off and got married without telling anybody that they were going to do this. They went and just got a quickie wedding in a courthouse.
Yep.
So,
Musically, doing great. Personally,
I mean, like, she loved him. Like, that was the love of her life. And I saw an interview with him, and I think he has since gotten himself sober, fingers crossed, for his sake. And he was basically like, you know,
hopefully, I mean,
he seemed normal. Like, he didn't seem like he looked like he was a normal weight. He didn't seem like he was high in the interview. He just maybe, like, had gotten himself help, I hope, since then. But
Me
he
too.
did say that Amy is the love of his life. And it's just kind of like, you know, that I think their addictions were also to each other. And it was a very unhealthy, toxic relationship. Like, she was known to carve into her stomach with broken pieces of glass.
yes, I saw a video where I think she was actually showing that off. Yeah, for a photo shoot she did. I love Blake. Carved into her stomach. Like, what the hell?
You know? Family members were obviously very concerned because the two were very publicly spiraling out of control. We've all seen the pictures of them leaving the hotel room just completely scratched up and bloodied. She's got blood on her shoes. He's got scratches and blood all over his face. It's just like there's no way that was a very healthy relationship.
Not possible.
They were eventually locked up on drug charges, and Blake would later be jailed and actually put in prison for attempting to bribe witnesses
Oh shit.
in that case.
Probably shouldn't do that, Blake.
Yeah, and Amy basically started falling completely apart once he was
Locked up?
locked up. Yeah, she would constantly go and see him and everything at the prison. She, I think, lived relatively close. She was always going to see him. She was always talking at concerts about him. But she would also be showing up to concerts super drunk.
Super drunk. There were multiple times that I saw that she was booed off the stage,
Yeah.
essentially,
Booed.
because she could not perform. She was too drunk and she was canceling concerts,
She
or
was forgetting lines in her
she couldn't
songs.
perform. And
Like-
I mean, that's depression for you, I guess. Like, she was trying to cope and she wasn't doing a very good job, and she was letting everything else fall apart, unfortunately.
She had severe self-esteem issues too, so without
did.
him there, I guess she also had severe stage fright. Without him there, she started leaning on the drugs and the alcohol a lot more. And
Unfortunately, it was kind of doing the opposite of what she needed it to do.
yeah. And, you know, the video that came out after she dramatically, like, changed her appearance. You know, she's known for her dark black hair with the big beehive and the big winged liner. She ended up cutting all of her hair off, basically, and dyeing it blonde. And shortly thereafter, a video came out of her smoking crack,
Yep.
and that was kind of the last straw.
That's a really low point, if you think about it.
Yeah. She was sent to rehab by her management company, by her family. They all were just like, you have to. You're ruining everything. You're ruining your life.
Yeah.
And
She was.
I think it stuck. You know, I think that one actually stuck a little bit, as far as the drugs go. 2 weeks later, however, she was slated to perform on the Grammys. She was denied travel to the U.S.
Why?
because of her drug charge that Blake was then imprisoned for. Because she was basically like they weren't allowing it. She was a very recent criminal, and so they were just like, no, they wouldn't let her go.
Interesting.
And So they set up for her to perform, and this is
Like by satellite?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is 2 weeks into rehab. They set up for her to perform via satellite, and so basically everybody was watching to just kind of see like the train wreck that is Amy Winehouse. Like, how's she gonna fuck it up? Is she
How
gonna
tragic.
forget everything? And she killed it. She fucking killed it.
Good.
She absolutely nailed it, and it was one of the best performances of her life. And she actually, I don't know if anybody's broken her record since, but she became the first British female. She was nominated for, I think, 6 Grammys. She won 5. She became
Good
the
for
first
her.
British female to win 5 Grammys.
I think Adele has probably broken that.
Yeah, probably. But you know what? If we're being honest, if it wasn't for somebody like Amy Winehouse, and especially that voice that just became, I don't know that there would be an Adele so much. You know, Amy Winehouse kind of paved the way for those deep, soulful singers.
She really did.
And Adele has a gorgeous voice.
Adele really does, and she's super talented.
Amy and Blake divorced.
Good. Eventually. I believe it was what, like 2000.
It was not. It wasn't.
9?
Yeah, it wasn't after 2. You know, there was. I think it was about 2 years of marriage. She was openly, or she admitted to. I don't know. She was like openly, like in the public eye, doing it, but she was cheating on him. She stopped going to visit him in prison, which he took really hard. And yeah,
I can imagine that was probably pretty rough on him.
Yeah, that was probably, yeah, he was just like, she was cheating, and you know, like, I hope at this point he was sober at the very least, because he was in prison. But
no, people still have access to all kinds of crazy shit in prison.
Yes, they do.
So he took that very hard. Did not handle it well at all. You know, she didn't handle it well when he went to prison because she didn't have her support system, and then he no longer had his for getting through prison. But I mean, the choices you make have consequences.
Absolutely. And she started to seem like she was doing really well with Blake out of the picture. Essentially, she started to seem like she was doing really well. Her music, like she was riding on the high of Back to Black, and you know. So despite the fact that she was seemingly like trying to get her life together, Amy has always admitted that she had a tendency for violence. Like, one of her things, like, she would always say, if Blake would get out of line, she'd chin him. Like, she had no problem, like, she basically had no problem being violent. And she continued to be arrested for different assaults. She said one of those, felt like somebody was threatening her, and so she punched her. Basically, like, she felt scared. Or no, she said she pushed her away. The person she pushed said that she punched her. But it was a whole lot of, like, she was arrested a bunch on assault, essentially, throughout the years after she got divorced.
So that tendency for violence was obviously prevalent in both of them.
Yeah.
And throughout their marriage, because it carried on with her even after the divorce. She continued to perform. She continued to earn accolades. She continued to do all of those things. So there honestly wasn't that much for her other than, like, she was earning awards, like I said, accolades, and also getting arrested for really in, like, 2009 to 2011, there wasn't very much going on.
No, there wasn't.
It was very hard to find any information, like, other than those types of things. Unfortunately, if you kind of fast forward to 2011, there were reports of her, like, touring and doing all those things, and again, just drunk on stage, unable to perform, being booed off stage, which is so awful because this woman's music was so impactful and it was so beautiful, and she was trying to, like, she was going out there, but she was, like, reported as tipsy to the point where she even was booed off stage in Brazil. And then I believe she canceled some tour dates right after that.
Yeah. No, she was definitely still struggling with her addiction problems. I did not see anything about her still being on, like, heroin. It was definitely...
Drugs. It was alcohol.
It was alcohol. Alcohol was kind of her favorite. Like, she did do the drugs with Blake. She did all... But her thing was alcohol. Mm-hmm. Like, I think somebody had said that they asked her, like, what's her go-to drink? And she listed off just a bunch of different liquors, and the person was like, I was just waiting for there to be a mixer, and there wasn't. There was no mixer. It was just alcohol. Which, girl, like, wow. That's just...
It's pretty hardcore. You asked me what my favorite drink, it's a toss-up between a mojito and a Bloody Mary. Yeah, they've got booze in there, but I also like the, the delicious flavors of drinks.
Yeah, see, mine is a mojito, and I like it to be low alcohol.
Yeah.
I like them to not put as much booze as they normally do.
June 18th of 2011, she started a 12-leg European tour. Ooh. Starting off in, I believe, Belgrade.
Interesting.
Her first performance was described as a scandal and a disaster for Amy. To struggle with things like that and then to just have the media rip you apart as a result.
Because she struggled with so much, like depression and self-doubt and low self-esteem, It's just...
But, I mean, the girl needed help. It was reported that she couldn't even tell, like, what city she was in. She had no clue.
Gosh.
But that, and this I thought was pretty fucked up. It was reported that her bodyguards, she tried to leave the stage during this concert. Her bodyguards forced her to stay on stage.
Oh, fuck you.
First of all, you're employed by her, so you better back the fuck up. But, it is what it is. That's what happened. And then she continued to pull out of performances after that.
I don't blame her. Honestly, she was struggling with a lot, and it seemed like people just were not understanding of that fact. She was like, she very obviously needed help.
She did.
And it's like, it seemed like no matter what, I believe her family was offering her help, but it seemed just a lot like it just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening in a way that was going to help her. You can't actually make somebody get help. They have to want to do it for themselves, but it's just so sad. She desperately needed help.
She really did. Her actual last public appearance took place in London on the 20th of July.
Yeah.
At a place called Camden's Roadhouse. Her goddaughter was actually there to perform with The Wanted, which is a pretty popular boy band, I think. I know.
I've heard the name before.
I think they were out right around the same time as like One Direction and stuff like that. I don't know anything about this.
We don't know.
I've got my playlist of music that I listen to on Spotify, and that's where I'm at.
We know NSYNC.
Yeah.
You like NSYNC? We know NSYNC.
I know like a One Direction song.
I know One Direction songs because I work in radio.
I just know a One Direction song. That's it. And then, obviously, tragedy struck.
Yes, it did.
On July 23rd of 2011, she passed away.
Yes, she did. I believe it was alcohol poisoning.
Yep.
That was the cause of her death.
I actually remember, I don't remember in detail, but I remember finding out that she died. And I feel a little bit bad, but I was kind of like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I was just like, well, I was waiting for that to happen, like, because, I mean, everybody knew she was fall down drunk all of the time, paparazzi were catching pictures of her, and she was trashed, those pictures with her ex-husband just covered in blood, and just, like, you knew that this girl wasn't gonna make it. Yep. Like, she was gonna die young.
She was. And that's a tragic thing to, as, a member of the public who loved her music as a person, to just know. You just knew it. You were like, yeah, there's no way. This is not going to last.
I think the tragic thing is that, see, I have this suspicion that maybe she had a lot more to drink than she was used to having. Mm-hmm. But the tragic thing is that at the time she was dating a man by the name of, I think, Reg Travis was his name.
I think so.
And they were planning on getting married and starting a family. Because that's something that Amy had always wanted, was to be a mom. Like, she felt like music was cool and everything, but she was meant to be a mom. And that to me was just kind of so heartbreaking, because he came out and said, like, we were planning on getting married. We wanted to have babies. We wanted to, start our family. She was also starting to work on her third album. They wanted to have something come out, because, it had been a few years since Back to Black came out.
And at that time, also leading up to her death, she had actually done an album, or had been on an album with Tony Bennett singing, and I believe the album was just called Duets. Yeah. Duets Part 2.
And her father was a huge Tony Bennett fan, too.
Yep. So that was huge for her family.
She had also released, and this is a side note my husband wanted me to make sure I tossed in there, She had also released a ska EP.
Oh,
So, yeah,
I did
some
not know
covers
that.
of some old like ska songs, and we listened to it the other day in the car, and it was actually like
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of awesome because these are songs that I know, but hearing Amy Winehouse sing them, it was really awesome.
They did eventually release an album, or release a single off of the Duets 2 album with her and Tony Bennett. It was called Body and Soul. The song was released on September 14th of 2011 as a way to sort of celebrate her birthday, stuff like that. Her two previously released albums, Frank and Back to Black, obviously re-entered the music, like the charts, because as we've stated in the past, when a musician dies, everyone flocks to their music.
Absolutely.
And wants to hear it.
Her father has actually been very public with his grief as well.
Yes, he has.
I have seen, like, he showed up at the house to greet fans, like, as they gathered for basically their vigil, to thank them, to tell them that Amy would be so happy and feel so loved to see all of them there. A lot of interviews with fans happened during those vigils where they said basically what we felt on that when we found out. Sad, heartbreaking, but I saw it coming.
Everybody saw it coming, unfortunately. Her parents were able to accept an award on her behalf for a Grammy.
Yes.
And, like, I can just imagine how heartbreaking that must have been for them to get up there,
absolutely.
because it should have been her. She should have been up there receiving that award, receiving that accolade for her performance and for her hard work. But instead, her parents were the ones that accepted, and it was very emotional for them.
I imagine. Yeah, the one thing I admire is her dad. I really just admire him so much, because instead of, like, kind of, I guess, sinking into his grief, he has become an activist.
Yes, he has. There is an Amy Winehouse foundation, and the money that they raise goes to support women with addiction problems. And that was started by her dad. He wrote a book too, Amy, My Daughter, or My Daughter Amy, and he is doing his best to keep her memory alive, but then also keep focus on tragedies like this and helping women with addiction problems.
Absolutely. Which, I think is so admirable, because that was his little girl. She was a daddy's girl. And that was he very well could have just fallen into his depression with losing his daughter, and he didn't.
He did not.
It was a call to action for him, which,
it's amazing.
Kudos to you, sir. Honestly, that is such an amazing thing to do, because I think I would fall completely apart.
I would fall apart. Just to further, show her impact, on December 6th of 2011, months after she had passed, they did release an album of, like, never before heard tracks.
Oh, yeah, and she
Called,
worked with all kinds of different artists, like Nas, too. She was a huge Nas fan. And, like, he was honored to work with her, because he was a big Amy Winehouse fan.
Who wasn't, The song, or the album, was called Lioness, Hidden Treasures. So that song also topped out at the Billboard 200. I believe it topped the UK charts, but then it debuted at number 5 on the US Hot 200 Billboard charts.
Of course it did. A lot of those were actually also just kind of recorded off the cuff type songs too. One of them was recorded in her house, just kind of randomly.
Yep.
Like, it hurt they were there, like, her management team was there, and somebody just happened to turn on a mic to record, and she just started singing, and it was a beautiful song. I don't know, she was incredibly talented. It's just such a tragedy.
She really was.
A statue was erected in England, kind of in her memory. I believe it has to do with the
Probably the foundation.
Yeah, with the foundation and all of the hard work that they're doing. Her father gave a very passionate speech during it, saying that they're making such a big difference. But, the sad thing is that Amy's not here to see it.
Correct. I mean, and she still really does have an impact today, because when I was on Twitter, like, there were so many people today just praising her and wishing her a happy birthday and saying, we'll love you forever, we'll never forget you, stuff like that. So her impact is still felt.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, and as soon as we realized that today was her birthday, we were just like, this is perfect.
Perfect. You know, we had to unfortunately delay the video, but once we realized what day it was, we were like, this is absolutely perfect. We have to film it today. It worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
So, she would have been 36 years old today,
Yes.
but unfortunately she did tragically pass, I believe, at the age of 27.
That seems to be a thing, you know?
That's why they have that Forever 27 Club, right?
Right, that's why they have that. I think too many have done that.
Too many creative minds, too many, just
Musical
artists.
geniuses.
Yeah. They tend to lose themselves, and it's just so happens to scarily, coincidentally, be at the age of 27.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed our little discussion about Amy Winehouse. We understand that it's probably not as detailed as it necessarily could be, but
She was-
finding some details about
Yeah,
her life
I couldn't find her wedding date, like, no, anywhere.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's crazy to me. But, you know, we couldn't, we did what we could with what we
did.
could find. Her life was still incredibly interesting and incredibly tragic.
Yeah.
You know, she deserved better for sure.
She absolutely did.
I think if Blake had never come into her life,
She probably would have been a lot better off, but then we might not have gotten some of those songs.
Rehab and oh my God, yes, some of
Back
those
to Black
amazing
and
songs
stuff like that.
You know,
So good.
so.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video about the lovely Miss Amy Winehouse. If you did, please feel free to give this video a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already. And we will see you guys very, very soon.
Very, very soon.
In our next one, guys.
In the next one, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.